Hey guys, welcome to Speaker's Corner. Welcome to Speaker's Corner. It's Rob from Speaker's Corner UK. I have made the trip all the way down to Speaker's Corner today. I'll be here for quite a while. And I'll be live streaming and recording in camera, so you'll get a nice, hopefully high quality stream. And I'll also have a very high quality recording afterwards. And what I'm hoping to do is do this once a month, and get down here. And I'm going to ask for support because it cost me about 120 quid to get down here once a month. So welcome to Speaker's Corner. We have some of Tommy's supporters over there with Amy, the bacon lady, right over there. And then we've got Anne-Marie Walters, who will be coming a little bit later on, who is from Britain First, and she'll be giving a talk, so we'll live stream that as well. And then we'll wander around, have some conversation, speak to different people, see how we go. I'm hoping to be able to stream for at least 3 hours or more, and then I'll charge the phone and hopefully carry on streaming again. So welcome to the stream, and let's go and have some conversations, walk around, see what's what. Lots of police here today. And what's his name? Leon over there, content over everything. You can see him there. There's my man Leon doing his recording. There is based Amy, I think her Twitter name is. So interesting to see what's going on here today. As we say, lots of police here at the moment. Lots of police folks here at the moment. Let's see what she looks like there. So we'll wait and see whether Amy Waters gets here from Britain First. So let's go around and see who else is going to be here. I'm not close enough to really record that at the moment, and I think this side here is going to be pretty much Tommy's supporters are going to be here, so we shall have to see who else arrives. Wander around the park here, show you a view of the park. Hey, there you are. I am streaming live here, so I'll keep the camera away from your son. How are you, my good sir? And you, man? I'm good, man. How are you keeping?
Very well. Did you see me on the ladder?
No, I missed you. I sort of only set up the camera now. Are you going up? Oh, you over there?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. I missed that. I'm sure one of the guys got it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, could you?
Yeah. So you're a bit of a celebrity now, aren't you? Huh? So, and you brought your young man along, I guess, to have a look and see. So, and there you go. You've got a fan. So, super dry. So. We're live streaming here. Hopefully there'll be some people on, I trust.
Do you live stream on Periscope?
No, I'm live streaming to YouTube. So it's the camera going into the mobile phone, which is sending it. So I get a high quality recording on here and then just live stream out. So I'm going to start asking for Patreon so that I can come down once a month. So obviously there's a cost of all of this stuff.
I know you're doing it on Periscope, but I guess it's just as easy to do it straight on YouTube.
Yeah. If you've got your phone, I'll show you how to do that. You're going to get a lot more viewers, especially if you've got a channel. You'll get a lot more viewers for people.
Yeah, is there just a button? Someone just tried to explain.
Are you mobile? Are you iPhone or Android? Are you Android?
Yes.
Yeah, so am I. So the YouTube button, the YouTube app itself, I'm not using the YouTube app.
I mean, not the YouTube app, actually.
Oh, just download that. It's very simple. But this is the only app that will allow me to input a signal into the phone, and then I can broadcast out. That's why hence this.
People have to click to get an alert when you're doing it live on YouTube.
If they subscribe and they've hit the bell, they'll get an alert. But also live stream appears at the top of your subscription list anyway. So if you just pop onto your subscription list, you'll see all the live options at the top anyway. So it is prioritising live. So we'll see. I hope so. Hello, sir. How are you? Yes.
How have you been?
Good, good. It took a long trip to come down here, 4 hours to get down here, so we're here now.
I miss you, man.
Yeah, well, I'm here today,
I don't
so
know about everybody else. I do.
I'm glad to be back here today.
The message is, if we pay enough, he'll come back.
I am going to...
Subscribe and come back.
Hey, here's my man. Content over everything. We're studio live, my man. How are you keeping, man? You well? Cool. Yeah, I just got here now, so I haven't had a chance to film them. Amy Waters, Anne-Marie Waters, sorry, is coming a little bit later, so we'll pick that up. Here's my man, Respect. Hello, bud. I like the way you're getting other people to do the audio. It's good, man. So here's Steve. We'll keep it above it. There's Steve. Hey, Steve. Say hi to the audience.
Hi, audience. Hi, Rob's audience. How
There you go. What did you do today? You did something on the platform.
I just popped up on the ladder after the Veterans Against Terrorism guy, Richard. I just popped up for a couple of minutes to talk about the effect of Islam on Speaker's Corner and the country, as well as some of my concerns about the whole Tommy Robinson saga.
Yeah.
Not least that the independence of the British jury seems to be seriously in question at the moment, which I think is incredibly worrying.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, is the slippery slope to totalitarianism, aka Putin's Russia, North Korea, etc. If we can't rely on a wholly independent judiciary that aren't pushed and controlled by senior people with a political mission, I think it is very worrying indeed. So yeah, that was what I talked about.
So you're going to stick around? How long are you going to be here for?
Hopefully, as long as the little one doesn't get bored, I'll be here. So I certainly want to see Anne-Marie, who's coming at 2 o'clock, I think.
Yeah.
Whether we'll hang around for the Polish guy that I think is coming here at 4 o'clock, we'll
Yeah,
see.
I'll be here until 7. That's when the train goes. Well, a bit later, but so
How long does it take you to?
4 hours. So it's an 8-hour round trip, and I'm here for 7 hours, which is kind of like, that's why it's probably only once a month, unfortunately.
Sure. Oh, well, good to see you.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some Patreon support. Then I can come once a month. At the moment, it's like once every couple of months, once every 3 months.
Come by train.
Yeah. But hopefully I can live stream. I'm not seeing anybody's chat here. Hey guys, if you are, why do I not see the chat? There's the chat is. There we go. There's the chat. I didn't have the chat up. Hey guys, now I can see the chats. Welcome to the stream. Thank you, Steve. We will catch you later. As you can see here, guys, I didn't have the chat on. I was wondering why nobody's talking. We're going to wander around here for a little while. Got quite a few police officers floating about to keep the peace, no doubt. So let's see who else we can find, what else is going on. Hope you guys are all well. And we'll see if we can catch up with people that I haven't seen for quite some time. So let's go and have a look and see. Here's our Muslim fellow on the ladder. I can't remember his name. There he is on the ladder there. Not somebody you can really have a good conversation with, unfortunately, because he just yells, and when he's asked questions, then he doesn't really give a substantial answer. So here's Hatun. Hello, Hatun. Who else here? Still quiet, I think, at the moment. It's still quite early at the moment, so but we'll stream at least for 3 hours, I hope. So let's see how well we do here. There's our crazy Christian, this fellow over here. Bear in mind, guys, I can see the comments, but they scroll up very quickly, so I'm not always going to catch them. If you put at Speakers Corner UK in there, if you want to ask me a question or something, then I'll hopefully be able to see it. Maybe it'll highlight it, or I'll be able to pick it up a little easier. So let's wander around and see what we can find out today. No real discussions happening just yet that I can see. I'm sure we can see everything here clearly. Yep. I'm going to go over here. I just need to grab some water, so I'm going to pop over here somewhere, put the camera down for a moment. So this gentleman here, for those who don't know, is an ex-Muslim. He's been abused by a few, extremist Muslims. And now obviously he's a Christian of some kind. So we support everybody's right to speak from a platform without abuse. So here we're gonna get Hatun. She loves being on camera, so we'll have Hatun for a
We
little while.
don't allow for the dog to come inside our house. It is prohibited in our religion to put
Now I can
dogs.
have a drink.
Look, you make yourself more educated than us. We are talking about cat, but because you are not following us, you are not educated. That's why you mentioned dogs. No, I must not talk with you because look. She's repeating again. I told.
Cat didn't walk over the Quran.
That's second
and then
reason.
I showed you my dogs who ate the Quran.
No,
what is it?
I didn't mention dogs. I mentioned cat. I mentioned bird. I mentioned bird. I mentioned cat. I didn't mention dogs.
Cat and the birds has nothing to do with my eternity. Give me your reasons why I should
If you go to YouTube, you will see. So why shall I follow you?
Helps me to stay in Islam.
Why shall I follow you?
I don't want you to
We are
follow
talking
me.
about
Follow
cat
Lord
and bird,
Jesus.
and we are giving you even evidence.
What
See
is
that
your
from
third
YouTube.
reason?
But you brought for us dogs and blah 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 blah.
What is your
That's
third
what we
reason?
get from women.
What is
That's
your
what we
third
get from women. Blah blah blah
That is
blah
the
blah
other
blah
shit.
blah. Because they think they are more educated than us. No,
what is your third
no,
reason?
no, no, no,
What
no.
is your
I
third
must not.
reason?
I must not listen to you because I mentioned to you that I mentioned miracles in the Quran. So why to repeat it again to you? And you said because I
Sir,
came now,
don't
and I said I will not
mention
repeat.
yourself.
No, no, no. I
Let's
said.
have a proper conversation.
I said.
Otherwise I'm gonna walk away.
I said-
with hearing.
I said-
I should be Muslim because cat didn't walk
I
on the
said-
Quran.
I said-
That
I
is
said-
disgraceful.
I said because
Very good
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Very good thing.
yeah.
Shame. Shame,
Yeah.
guys, have you heard?
Shame to
The
you.
reason-
Shame to you.
The reason
Shame
person
to
should be
you.
Muslim
Shame to you.
because cat
You
didn't
are
walk on
mentioning
the
dog.
Quran.
You are
Shame on you.
mentioning cat. You are mentioning dog. Shame to you. قاعد اقول لها انا ذكرت فما له داعي اذكرها لانه انا عندي السكر بعدين الانر قالت لي انا سوري انا الحين جيت عيد قلت لا ما عيد والحين تقول لي اذكر الاسباب. السبب الاول قلت لها في ميركلز فطبعا السبب الثاني روحي يوتيوب شوفي حتى البس اللي حول ايه حتى الرجال ارغم البس عشان ما لما جاب كتاب ثاني شو بدك كمان احسن من هيك وهذا التركي.
Thank you very much.
Hey guys, you're very welcome. Here's Hassan, Radwan. How are you, Hassan?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm good, yeah, I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
People can hear me because I've got two mics here, one here, one there. How come you came down today?
Well, basically, because you texted me that you were coming down.
Fair enough.
So I thought I'd come down. As you know, I live just 10 minutes away, so it's no trouble for me to come down.
Exactly. Hey, anybody who, Hassan's probably got the most envious location, 10 minutes from Speaker's Corner, so,
That's debatable. That's debatable.
well, if you wanted to get down here on a Sunday without having to do anything, then I used to think an hour coming in, like 45 minutes was long. Now I'm 4 hours, so it's an 8-hour round trip for a 7-hour visit, so, I can't do it that often, so great to see you.
Lovely to see you, Rob.
We'll have a wander around and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Got lots of people on the live stream here as well. You can see all the people talking there.
Awesome.
So obviously we record through the camera, then it goes into the mobile phone and gets, sent out onto YouTube. So have you seen anybody of interest here?
Not really.
I mean, obviously there'll be a fair amount of politics at the moment.
You're obviously proud over there.
Yeah.
See, the vid's very fair and balanced.
Yes, I did, and I
thought that was really good. He tried not to be, either, provocative or anything. He tried to just give the facts.
I agree, yeah. And I've said, and I've spoken to Raj and Steve, etc. It seems very clear that Tommy overstepped the mark. He had a suspended sentence. I read last year's judgment on the way in on the train, and he was given a 3-month prison sentence, suspended for 18 months. So he's within the 18-month period, and but there's a lot of things that he could challenge for the whole story, and especially the 13 months.
I've really got nothing against Tommy at all. I actually don't believe he's a racist. I mean,
No, I don't
I'm going on about it. I actually don't believe he's a racist. I just wish he'd do things a little bit smarter, as David says.
Yeah.
He can have a much better effect if he did things a bit more.
Let's just put it over here with Raj to give the viewers something. Yeah, I agree. But everybody's different. Tommy's more of the, in your face, where you and I are more calm. I would do it in a slightly different way.
I guess it's horses for course.
I mean, he's very effective most of the time, and that's,
When I first got it, I was like, this is going to be hard to get rid of. But it just stuck, and I couldn't get rid of it. So I just didn't race it. And then when I met him, and I finally did meet him, and I was like, he's 100% not a racist. And so I was I embraced the name. And I'm like, I know it annoys them now because I've got a very thick skin. It takes a lot to.
Don't worry, mate. I'm Gammon.
So I've got a very thick skin and I've got a weird sense of humour. So unfortunately,
we like that.
a lot of the guys down here.
I like the way you see raw. Would you be interested?
Yeah.
Do you do live streams ever?
Yeah, I do. I've done live streams.
Well, would you be interested? Because setting up a channel with the guy who's on, he's running my channel at the moment because this lot knocked you out for a second.
I would love to do a live stream.
Yeah, cool. Well, we've got that. Right, you heard that live.
It's normally a lot of vulgarity and a lot of PC.
Yeah,
he's got a family friendly. A lot of race baiting. As much as I can push the buttons, you said some of my live streams. It goes pretty haywire, so just prepare. I've got a tongue in cheek when I do stuff like that.
Ideal for you, Simon. That'd be ideal. I want to try and find some lefties at the moment because.
You
know what I mean? If we can find any and point me in their direction,
they'll start crying and waiting their panties.
Well, yeah, because I mean, all you got to do is smell.
One of the things about Speaker's Corner, there's a lot of men that act like women and quiet. And my feelings are hurt.
And my heart breaks.
And they're wetting their panties all the time. And you're like, oh, come on.
Nanny Robinson.
Yeah,
she's in the poem if you want, over here. And the first thing she stopped, she said, sweet, you said, that was racist.
Yeah.
And we just went, Speaker's Corner, and it wasn't racist.
Well, the thing is that...
He stood away. That was his first contribution.
Is that why some bloke over to the left looked like he was going to fill him in?
Well, that's when it all sort of kicked off a bit.
Yeah,
I think it's a weird kind of like...
it's go-to, isn't it?
Like a kind of like double rule here. Like, you can be insulted, like you can't insult the other person. Yeah, it is. So the thing about, there are some great Muslims that I've met. When I first come here, I'll admit I was a full-on Islamophobe. I was walking around like, I hate everyone, but when you speak to human beings and you meet people, there are some amazing guys here, but unfortunately the bad ones have taken over. And we need to regain it back. Yeah, the good ones.
One of my best mates is a Muslim guy. He's the most peaceful fucker in the world, right? Lovely guy. But his missus is now the victim because she walked down the street and she feels like she shouldn't be wearing a dress and all the rest of it. People are thinking, am I walking around with a bomb? Of course you're not walking around with a bomb, you idiot. Right? But idiots, like white idiots, will look at them and go,
well, look at me. I look like I've got a gun as well.
Mate, you need to top up on it.
So it's actually a camera though. So I wear it to trigger people. I like to trigger people. So
yeah, I see you. I was like, you're going to shoot me.
For your safety.
Yeah, I wear that for my safety because I've been threatened.
I see it every time.
So the thing is, like, one thing about here, when you're outnumbered, when I haven't got my bodyguard, this guy here.
Well, he said, right, he just said, because he said how to identify a Sikh is with a turban. You said...
No, this as well.
That as well, but you said, I'll stand out, and I said, yes, because you've got highly polished shoes.
Yeah. He was too left-wing. He couldn't say my turban. It was like, oh no, I'm going to be seen as a racist for pointing it out. It's a bit like Tan he was at a conference, and like, he's Chinese, just point at the Chinese guy. He had to point at the guy with the tattoos, because it's so left-wing that they can't even use the word. So I always say that I think left-wing people are more racist than the right, because
they call it
they have a bigotry of low expectations. They treat you like a kid, like, oh, poor little Indian, you're being used by Tommy Robinson. I'm like, hold on a second, I'm in full function of my own brain. I know what I'm doing, and I'm using them in a way. Yeah, I'm doing my thing. Yeah, I knew what I was doing.
Because you're Sikh, you shouldn't support Tommy Robinson.
But what it is, there's a lot of group things. So when an individual thinks out of that group, like I was surrounded by like 40 Indians, all shouting at me, going, "I'm ashamed of you," because I went to the Tommy Robinson event. And so
This
I'm
is
like,
2 weeks ago here.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care what you think. Like, you've got a group thing, and you see them, they all become like little savages when they're all together.
They start kneeing you and stuff. They knee you and stuff, don't they?
No, not me. That's Tan. Tan's
Yeah, they knee him, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not on
But
camera.
I have been threatened a few times.
They're like Quran, aren't they?
We try to do that which makes them happy. And so it is with God. We love God and so we try to do that which makes God happy. This is how it changes us. This is how it
So here we've got Bob. We've got my man Soccer Fonz. How you doing, brother? Long time no see. Yeah, and you, man.
About what happened, why did God not intervene to stop these rapes going on? Well, this is the classic question about suffering. God allows suffering in the world because he wants us to be moral beings. And moral beings can only be moral beings if they are able to make free moral choices.
What these people are trying to say is why did God come down in person?
Yeah.
We all know that's not possible. Yeah? What you're trying to put across is the reason why God did it, because the people never had God.
Yes. And what I'm also trying to say
I think he's trying to tell you that you can't have objective morals.
I agree.
I don't agree.
Right. We'll come to that. So what I'm also trying to say is that there is a hubris and a pride amongst our community. A hubris and a pride that doesn't want to face up to the fact that we are actually part of our own problem. Our apathy is not by accident. The fact that the vast majority of our own community have no care for what's happening in the political world and just think it's all a load of bollocks, they're all the same politicians, I'm not fucking voting. I come from a working class community. I know the kind of things that we say to ourselves. That kind of rubbish comes from a fact that we are so filled with hubris and pride that we think that we don't have anything to sort out amongst ourselves, and we do.
You could also go back to saying the core of the problem is the education system in this country. That is a core problem.
Yes.
There's no values anymore. It's the education standards in this country are quite poor unless you can afford private school.
Moral relativism, which is the philosophy of the liberal establishment, is now being taught in our schools, and we have surrendered our children and their minds to liberal, progressive indoctrination. And until we stop cooperating with the state, establish private schools. Yeah? Send your children to Christian schools. Yeah? How are we doing? Send your children to Christian schools. Demand that those Christian schools practice the Christian faith and teach it, and not follow that multicultural rubbish that has so failed our society. And I'm saying that because the church has a model of multiculturalism that works. The liberal multiculturalism doesn't work. If you go to any church, any Sunday, you're more than likely to see a group of people of different ethnicities and tribes worshipping God together. We Christians have practiced multiculturalism for 2,000 years. I don't need to take a lecture on multiculturalism from a liberal.
No.
Because a liberal's multiculturalism failed. Society fails when it follows multiculturalism of the liberal brand.
Correct. I've seen it. I've worked in schools recently, and I've seen the liberal mantra plastered all over. These are like primary schools, and I've seen it, and it's quite astonishing.
And they have the minds of your children.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that the liberal state is as bad as the Nazis, but it's not far. Hitler once boasted. He said, "What you think doesn't matter because we have your children." And he was applauded for it. But he was speaking the truth, because he understood that now that the Nazis controlled the state education, that within a generation or two, anyone who was opposed to the Nazis were irrelevant.
Yeah, because the children have been indoctrinated with...
Exactly, and the liberals think the same. They think that you do not matter, because they have your children in their hands.
Yeah. There's a lot of people I know that they don't really want to have their children taught in state school. If I had children myself, I would definitely question whether I wanted to send them to school in a state school. I'd rather teach them myself. If if I could do that because, as I said,
Easy thing to do.
I know it's not an easy thing to do, but then I would rather have
I would encourage you instead to send them to a Christian school.
Well, I would prefer to teach them myself.
Yeah.
School never really did anything for me. Never taught me much. It taught me to read and write. I mean, all the knowledge and skills I've garnered, I got after school.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not.
I think that the only way that any project against the establishment can work is if it is rooted in a culture that predates the establishment agenda. Because you can't defend England if you separate England from its Christian past. You can't stand up for anything English if you think that being English isn't about being Christian. Because English identity has been interwoven with the Christian church for over 1,000 years now.
What's happening now, if you proclaim to be English and hold up the English flag, in many parts of society, you're a racist. You're a bigot.
When you hold up the English flag, whose flag are you holding up?
Our country. It's the Union Jack.
Hold on, it's the Union Jack.
It's a cross.
It's a cross.
St. George.
You're holding up a cross, and who was St. George?
Of course.
He was an Armenian. So we English proudly fly the cross of an Armenian. That's my point, is that being Christian and the English being Christian actually opens our horizons to the world, because what it does is it links us to a global movement called the church. The English took as their patron saint an Armenian, not an Englishman, and they did it with pride. For England and... No, for England and St. George was the battle cry. That was the battle cry of the English. For England, our nation, and the Armenian saint, who is the patron of our nation. So being a Christian is about being interwoven into a global community called the church. It means that it's not about ethnicity. Being English is something that elevates us out of simple parochial boundaries, but it also solidifies an identity against the globalist agenda that seeks to diminish any culture and turn it all into a giant melting pot, because it proudly says, we as Christians have our own history, we as Christians have our own culture, we as Christians have our own identity, and we're not going to let you take it away from us.
Question. So, how do we go about promoting those Christian values? I mean, surely you're not thinking of enforcing them top down.
No, this would be silly. We have to deal with the reality that we're in today.
Right.
We promote them by living them first. That's what we do. Because unless you can convert yourself, how can you convert the nation around you? Unless you can live a noble life, how can you call people to nobility? Unless you can show Christian love, how can you ask people to practice it? Now, I'm not standing here, brother, saying that I'm a saint. I still sin. I still struggle with all the sins that you probably do. Yeah? But what I'm saying is that the energy of my life is orientated to something above and beyond and greater than myself. Which means that what happens to me is not as important as the cause. And if I have to sacrifice myself for the triumph of the church, so be it. And that's what I'm calling you to do. I'm calling you to be a warrior of Christ, a true soldier of the living God.
It's been very interesting.
All right.
Pleasure, mate.
You look after yourself.
I will.
You're going to get that Bible out?
Yeah, I'll download it.
All right. You look after yourself. God bless you and take care. And congratulations on the things that you're changing.
Yeah.
They're good things to do.
It's going to be a struggle, but
Yeah.
I've been through worse.
You're going to do well. Godspeed. I'll pray for you. Take care.
We want to do that.
Tell me about these objective.
These objective moral positions.
Yeah, tell us whether we need God for objective morals. That's what you were going to explain to me.
Yeah. So, in terms of objective morality is that which can be observed and seen apart from any ideology.
It's a little bit narrow.
It is. So, one example of that, let's use natural law in terms of the fact that you would agree that human beings are born and do become moral agents of one kind or another.
They have innate morality.
Yeah, they have a lay morality.
They have innate morality.
Innate morality. So they have an innate moral structure to their consciousness. Yeah. Which indicates that there is some kind of moral system to follow, but it doesn't prove it.
Well, it's self-evident.
Yeah, it is self-evident. You're right. So now in terms of that which is what we can draw from that, we can draw certain lessons by looking at the world and seeing how it is and what it indicates about how we should live. Yeah?
Well, we can draw objective morality from ourselves.
Draw objective morality, that's you're making my argument, that's what I'm saying.
From ourselves. We don't have to look at the world because we know...
Are we part of the world?
We are, but we don't have to look at the world, we just see it ourselves.
You just see it in yourself?
Yes, because we don't want to be harmed.
You don't want to be harmed. So, thank you. You've just indicated an objective moral standard.
That was my point,
yeah.
But I don't need God for that.
However, in terms of anchoring that objective moral system, so that it cannot be subverted by any ideology, political or otherwise, you have to anchor that moral structure on a claim of truth. And a claim of truth doesn't make any sense if there isn't a God.
I would say the opposite.
Do you believe that there's
God is used to undermine that morality?
Let me ask you this question. Do you believe that there is such a thing as truth?
I believe that there's an objective morality.
Do you believe that there's such a thing as truth?
Well, I'm a mathematician, so there are truths in mathematics.
You're still equivocating. Do you believe that there's such a thing as truth?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about.
Truth. Something that corresponds...
If you want to say the truth of God, for example, then I'd have to say no.
No, I'm saying something that corresponds closely to reality.
Is it true that I'm here?
Yeah, it's their objectivity.
Right.
Yeah, we can't argue against skepticism. It's impossible.
No, we can't.
No, we can't. But we can say, sensibly, that it's axiomatic, but we could say there is an objective morality.
Thank you. So there is an objective morality. So who defines
reality? I'm saying objective reality.
Reality from which we can draw.
There's an objective morality.
From which we can draw truth. So, for example, we can draw the truth that the point of sexual conduct is reproduction. Agreed?
Yeah, gene propagation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So gene propagation is the point of sexual conduct, right?
Yes.
Not pleasure.
At the reduced level, yes.
Not pleasure.
Yes, but the pleasure comes from the fact that you...
Pleasure is the reward that you get for reproducing.
It's what encourages you to...
But the point of sexual conduct is not pleasure. So we can draw from this objective reality certain sexual moral truths.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of a jump, because for most people at their conscious level, the purpose of sex is for pleasure.
Because of a political ideology that has told them so?
No.
Not because of any grounding in truth?
No, because it's intrinsic to human beings to feel pleasure when they have sex.
The license to pursue pleasure is a cultural, political agenda that was born in the 1960s into our modern culture. Before that,
are you suggesting that cavemen didn't derive pleasure from sex?
Of course they did. I'm not saying they didn't.
So it was always there.
No. No, you're conflating things now. What I'm saying is that we can draw from the reality that sex is about reproduction.
Scientifically, yeah.
Yes. That therefore the point of sex is not primarily pleasure, but that is a secondary accident to the incident of reproduction.
I disagree.
Okay, you disagree. However, you're arguing against what is obvious.
No, I'm not.
You're arguing against an objective reality.
I'm saying they're two separate things. There is reproduction and there's pleasure.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how political narrative distorts our perception of reality.
We've already agreed that cavemen had that experience before this politics.
No. What you're doing.
Do animals have pleasure?
What you are doing is distorting the reality that is obvious to all, which is what is the point, the maximum point of sexual pleasure? Yes, there is. It's called ejaculation. And what happens at ejaculation?
That's a very misogynistic viewpoint.
What's the point of the female orgasm?
Lubrication.
No, it isn't. Gosh, dude. Anyway, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say the obvious. The point of the female orgasm is to draw up.
That too.
The point of the female orgasm is to draw up the sperm.
Yeah, no, I agree. Accept that.
Right. So the maximum point of the pleasure of the sexual act is connected directly to reproduction.
I'm not denying that these two things exist, but from our conscious selves, we seek pleasure.
No, that is what you have been formed to think
it's a fact.
by a liberal society who in the 1960s gave itself over to a hedonistic culture. Yeah? The pursuit of sexual pleasure as an end in of itself is contrary to natural conduct. It is like a man who eats not to sustain himself, but simply for the enjoyment of the flavour of food.
Which they do.
And that is also contrary to what is naturally, intrinsically rooted in the natural order.
It's not for sustenance.
I agree, and that is why, as a moral system, you would say it is wrong to be gluttonous, and it is wrong to practice sexual licentiousness.
Right, but you could argue that in a secular fashion, because if you overate, you would have the experience of obesity potentially, and your body would break down.
And which secular authorities are arguing that exactly?
Scientists would argue that, nutritionists would argue that.
No.
They're not religious.
They are not saying that it's morally wrong. They're just saying that.
What do we mean by moral? We mean right. We mean
exactly.
We mean desirable and undesirable.
No. No, that's what you're defining it as. That's what you're defining it
No, I've
as.
seen a definition where it is that.
No, that's what your definition
How do we define
is.
right and wrong?
Right. What I define right and wrong is that which corresponds to that which is true.
Yeah, but you're going to define right and wrong what your God tells you.
Yes. And what are you defining right and wrong as?
There are intrinsic morals innate in us.
Intrinsic morals innate within us. I agree. My faith teaches that. It's called natural law. Do you know what natural law is? Do you know what natural law is?
Please enlighten me.
Do you know what natural law is?
Please enlighten me.
Is that a yes or a no?
Let's say no.
Okay, right. I'm going to take it as a no.
I did say no.
Swallow your pride. There's nothing wrong with admitting if you don't know something.
I know.
Yeah?
I know.
Swallow your pride.
The ocean.
There is nothing wrong with admitting if you don't know something. Do you know what natural law is?
I don't. You
Okay,
go for it.
right.
It's easy for you to say.
So natural law is the Christian doctrine that God, as He created the natural world, structured it in such a way that we can draw from it lessons of truth, lessons of morality.
Right, but you still haven't dealt with the fact that I am saying that there is an objective morality without God.
What I am saying is
you
the
need
very.
to demonstrate that, I think.
So let us look at the very idea of objective. What underpins your moral system?
In that evolution.
Evolution.
I'm evolved to be a social creature.
Okay, so you believe that evolution is the thing that you should draw a moral system from,
We
right?
don't draw from it, but it's innate in us and it comes from evolution.
Right. Do you know what social Darwinism is?
Well, social Darwinism, I believe, is where society evolves. Is that what
No.
you're talking about? Okay,
Social Darwinism was a philosophical movement in the 1900s up to 1945, taking its cue from people like Nietzsche and also the theory of evolution that there were different races and that some races were better than others.
Nonsense.
Yeah, it is nonsense. But evolution, if you're going to use that as the prism, the narrative by which you decide your moral system, well, evolution is about survival of the fittest.
But you couldn't even
So
use
that
that against animals.
so that those that survive are then able to breed. So survival of the fittest is about who I can dominate.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that your moral system? You what?
Evolution doesn't have totally everything to do with domination.
No, there are
It's just
examples of
those that can acclimatise to the
What Bob's saying
environment
is we
more
could-
suitably than other
what Bob's saying is we
organisms.
could
Yeah.
Those are
derive
the
from
ones that survive longer, therefore pass their procreate.
But the theory of evolution, if we used it as a narrative, a prism by which to construct a moral narrative, would mean that we need to make all the earth bent solely around our own survival.
Yes, but it would break the objective morality of the fact that human
And
beings
that is not
don't
what my
like
faith
being
teaches.
harmed.
You what?
It would break the objective morality of the fact that human beings don't like being harmed.
This objective
So when
morality-
we were dominating others, we are harming others.
This objective morality that you're indicating to Is exactly. I agree with you. It is a fact. And so what it shows us is that there are objective moral truths in nature that we can draw from to understand what is morally right and morally wrong.
So where does God come in?
Right. So where does God come in? For me, God is the one, the author of all creation. Yeah, you are saying that there is no moral order. You're saying that there is no God, right? So what you really want to debate is whether God exists.
I'm a soft atheist. I'm not saying that.
So what it seems to be saying, what you seem to suggest is you want to argue that God doesn't exist.
No.
Right.
I have the default position. God doesn't exist until you compel me.
But there is such a thing as truth.
Well, it's contextual, but yeah.
Contextual to
whatever we're discussing.
Contextual. It's so vague. I don't actually understand what you're communicating.
It's very difficult to detail, but I mean, mathematics, as I said, which is my subject.
So what's
has
to stop?
Issues around
Here's why we need God to underpin objective morality.
We don't.
We do,
No, we
because now we have a disagreement between us. I say he's wrong, and he says I'm wrong.
No, you don't.
No.
You do accept
that
hold
none
of us want to be harmed.
Do you
That's
believe
an
in abortion?
objective morality.
Do you believe in abortion?
Do I believe it exists?
No. Do you believe that it should be practiced morally?
It's a difficult subject.
And that's not an answer to the question.
I cannot give you that answer.
Are you undecided?
No,
are you undecided?
it's a contextual problem.
Are you undecided on it?
No, I'm not undecided. It's
so
a contextual problem.
Do you agree with it or disagree with the practice of abortion?
I cannot give you a definite answer on that.
Why are you vague?
Because I cannot give you.
Have you come to a moral conclusion on the question of abortion?
No.
You haven't?
No.
So it's still up in the
Because
air
it's
for you?
contextual.
Still up in, fair enough, that's fine if you haven't come to a moral conclusion. But what we have is two truth claims and I believe two moral systems. You have indicated that you want to base your moral system on evolution. I believe it should be based on revelation. We disagree. This is why you need God, because God allows you to have a common narrative. What we don't have at this moment is if we have no objective truth to measure moral systems by, all we have is a competition. A competition in which the one who is stronger wins.
But Bob, there's a problem there.
Go on.
You're talking about your God.
Yes.
What happens when we deal with the 300 gods and they've all got their different moral positions?
I know.
How do we deal with that?
Absolutely. So you deal with it by measuring truth by that which corresponds closest to reality. So
that's mine.
So you say that's yours. You say you say that you simply should live a life in which you don't hurt others, right?
I think it's the basis of objective morality.
So it's Buddha's.
And by harm, for example, if we steal from someone, that harms that person.
It's essentially a sort of approximation to Buddha's moral system.
Can I ask a quick question, clarification? By harm, do you mean cause pain?
Yes, but it could be mental pain, anguish.
Yeah. So in terms of
pain, utilitarianism.
Yeah. So in
and
terms
seeking pleasure would be the extra thing there, right? From the utilitarian.
But who defines what is pleasure? Because your pleasure may be another person's pain.
Right, but then I can't violate that. I can't harm that person. So
that means that you should probably
I mean,
not.
utilitarianism talks about seeking pleasure.
So
about
you should probably. So if you were to actually practice this principle, yeah, there'd be very little that you could actually do.
Well, you could raise
Because
psychopathy, for example.
Everything that we do causes someone pain. Your purchase of that bag, your purchase of that watch, your purchase of those trainers will be connected to a social system that is built intrinsically on injustice.
Yes.
So seeking not to do harm is insufficient. Christ gives you a better moral example. He says to love, because love is proactive. It isn't simply seeking to avoid harming others, it is actually to seek what is best for them. No, let me just deal with this point. So here we have two moral systems being proposed. One by the atheist, who says avoid evil, avoid hurting other people.
No, I'm not saying
One
that.
that is what you say.
That's
That is what you
intrinsic
say.
to us.
What I have said is that Christ gives a better moral example. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So that means the good that you want for yourself, you should pursue for those around you. So one is simply about avoiding hurting others, and the other is about pursuing what is best for other people. Now, which of these two moral systems will produce the most good?
You're asking that question?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
That's correct.
I'm confident that it's Christ.
I'm not confident either.
Because no charity was ever set up because they simply were trying to avoid hurting people.
The problem with religion is that it can be subverted.
No, hold
we
on.
see that constantly.
Hold-
So I'm undecided. on that.
No, I'm not.
Linguistically, you should start off a sentence which the problem is.
Oh yeah, we had that earlier.
Yeah. So the point that I'm making to you, no charity has ever been set up because someone said, I want to avoid hurting people, so I'll set up a charity. No, charities get set up because people think, shit, there are some homeless people on the street and no one is looking after them, so I will do something about it.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be a Christian thing. You can extrapolate the morals and the ethics
They're being harmed.
from
I mean,
a
it seems-
doctrine and
Yes.
use that. And I don't have to be a Christian
And that
to
is
do
the
that.
liberal project for the last 300 years,
No, I
and
don't
it
buy
has
that.
failed.
But I can do that on an individual level.
That is entirely what the Enlightenment project is. The
I'm talking
Enlightenment.
about myself.
I know you are.
I can extrapolate the
I
morals
know
and
you are,
ethics,
and all you're
I can
doing-
live my life in the same
And
way
all
that
you
can.
are doing is repeating a narrative that our society has bestowed to you from the
I'm an
Enlightenment.
individual and I'm
No,
living
then-
my life on the moral compass that I set myself.
So you need to. That is exactly what society has taught
So
you to
unless
do.
I follow your book, I'm not going to be as moral as you.
I am saying
but
to
Bob,
you.
Bob, people- they-
that is exactly what I'm saying.
Early man
That is
forms
exactly what I'm saying.
society. Early man
Because
forms
hold on,
society.
let me
Without God.
address this brother's point. Because the fact is, what you are echoing is exactly what our society has been trying to do for 300 years, to extract the moral system of Christianity from the Christian doctrines that underpinned it. And what has that resulted in? It has resulted in the very undermining of a concept of truth upon which the basis of the rule of law is established. And the reason why the rule of law being undermined in our country is because our country has separated the concept of right and wrong from the concept of truth, which means that truth is simply what you make it. Well, that works for you as an individual, but what happens when the establishment decide the truth is what they make it?
But you're not-
And decide
you're not
that
arguing for
Tommy
moral
Robinson
religion,
is an
I'm not
extreme
saying
right-wing
it's
fanatic.
I'm
Because
saying I follow my
they
own
are
moral
creating
compass
their
based on
own
my own
truth
observations.
and
There is an
deciding
objective
their
reality.
own moral system. And that's what you're doing. You are echoing as an individual, and I agree it's probably nothing like as harmful as what the liberal establishment are doing. But the liberal establishment are doing it as a collective with power, and you're doing
I'm
it
not
as an
talking
individual.
about them.
But I
I'm
am.
not, well, you are, but I'm
still
not.
Because
doesn't
you are
explain.
echoing what they are
No,
doing.
You think I am.
That is what you're
No,
doing.
That's your perception. That's your paradigm.
Does our
that's
state-
that's the prism through which you're looking at it.
Are you an atheist or an
no,
agnostic?
I'm neither.
Neither. What do you
I'm
believe?
not a label.
You're not a label.
I'm a free thinker. How about
Okay,
that?
a free thinker.
Sorry if that doesn't categorise
No.
me in a way that you find
No,
it
it
easy.
does
atheist.
perfectly.
Challenge.
It does
For the
perfectly
camera,
because
he's an
you're just
atheist.
that's exactly what the Enlightenment is all about. Free thinking.
Oh,
Read
yeah.
Kant. Read Kant.
So-
I'm not making it up.
So it's
Kant is the
immoral,
father.
It's immoral to be a free thinker.
Kant is the father of the Enlightenment. He was the one who coined the phrase "be a free thinker," and he used the story of Abraham to demonstrate that point. So yes, you
so because
are.
one person said it means that he has the
What I'm
total
saying
monopoly
is,
on
you're
it.
using terms and you're ignorant of where they've come from. You're using an ideology and you're ignorant of where it has come from. What you are.
Truth is not an ideology. Morality is not an ideology.
I agree, truth is not an ideology.
But you're making it sound like because someone said it before and philosophized about it, therefore I've echoed it or I've said it.
That is
from
exactly
them.
what you've done.
But it's ridiculous.
So what? That
It's
is exactly what you've
ridiculous.
done. That is exactly
So
what
you
you've done.
can't. So you can't have someone just be a moral person because it must have come from a philosopher that once said it, and therefore I'm echoing it. What
A
an
moral
ridiculous thing to
journey.
say.
A moral journey is much like any other journey. You need a map and a compass. And without a map and a compass, all you're doing is guessing. And that's
Can
what
we
you're
get
doing.
back to the multiple
You're
gods?
just guessing.
I want to hear about the multiple gods.
You're just guessing. But I want to deal with his point because he really doesn't understand how his personal, individual attitude is exactly what the state is doing. Because the state practices state agnosticism. It says amongst all religions, amongst all claims to truth, we don't know what's true. So be yourself, make up your own truth, decide your own moral system, just don't hurt anyone. But the state, when it practices that collectively, decides to invent the truth. And so it labels all of these people wrongly.
But the state is hurting people.
I agree.
We can agree on
it
that.
Is.
So
it
don't
is.
think that people on this side are not acknowledging that truth as we are.
Because this moral system that you're seeking to follow is not rooted in reality.
If you were to leave Christianity tomorrow,
it's a truth.
Would you become an immoral person?
I would become a less moral person.
Right, so less moral.
Yes.
So why not totally immoral?
Do you know what sin is?
No, hang on.
I'm going to address your point.
No, let's not do question. Let's
Okay,
do question answer.
all right. Question, answer, then question.
So, did that not make sense, that question?
So ask your question again, so I'll answer.
Okay, so if you were to give up Christianity tomorrow, would you become an immoral person?
I would become a less moral person.
Well, why not totally immoral?
Right.
Because according to your logic,
sorry,
you can only be a moral
you have
person
asked a question. One second.
Bob actually did agree with you.
No. Where did the Iranian pound originally come from? So, society, that's what we see. We see the fact that even though people like yourself are saying I'm a free thinker, I'm not a Christian, still having lots of morals that accord with the Christian faith because our culture has been Christian for over 1,000 years, and that juggernaut of history doesn't just disappear overnight. But as our society has moved increasingly away from its Christian faith, it has brought in more and more laws that are contrary to the Christian faith, such as the liberalisation of divorce laws that are the root of destroying families amongst, one second, or destroying families amongst white working communities.
But it's doing that regardless of
the abortion laws, which are allowing white working communities to kill their own children and to prevent them from having the next generation. The litigiousness in terms of the No, I'm giving examples.
Can you give us an example of the immorality that...
Let me finish. So these laws, like the abolition of the Sabbath law, which has meant that increasingly workers in the UK are being abused by their employers who force them to work far above and beyond any kind of norm, and does not allow for the bonding of society by giving people a common day off. So different people are having different days off, so they can't see their friends and they can't see their family because their wife's got one day off and they've got another day off.
But this is all objective morality, Bob.
It's harmful to society. It's harmful to society.
For that.
So in answer to your question, the reason why I didn't become a completely morally immoral person is because if I abandon my faith, a lot of my moral narrative would still be Christian.
Let me ask you a question.
Now let me ask you a question.
Now hold on.
No. I'm doing one question. No, I'm doing.
I want to know what you would do after Christianity that would be immoral. Because you said you would be less immoral. So you're doing something that's immoral. What is it? What are you going to do that's immoral?
I'm going to ask him a question first, and then I'll address your question, and then I'd like him to respond to my question.
Please.
So you'll have time to think about it. Right? You said that your moral system was based upon how you felt about something.
Being a human being.
Yeah, so it's about your feeling. Yeah, it's about your feeling.
Yeah, sure.
Has your feelings ever led you to think that something... if your moral feelings say something is right, does that mean that it's right for society or just right for you?
Okay.
That's the question. Yep. So you asked me the question, what would I do?
What you actually said was that if you stopped being a Christian...
I become a less moral person.
Implying that you would take actions that were immoral.
Yes.
What are those actions?
So I'm not going to give a list because obviously I don't know.
Just give me one.
I'm just going to give you one. That's exactly what I'm going to give you. So for me, as a Christian, to deny truth is immoral. To deny what is real is immoral. And our reality is that God exists.
Receive and transmit at the same rate as the other person, because at the moment it's a little bit of a bully boy tactic in what he does, and unfortunately it doesn't lead to it isn't conducive to a productive conversation. Now, one thing that I noticed he did do is when I'm talking, he likes to try and get me into a box, to categorise me, to label me, and then what he tries to do is tries to discredit me because he assigns me to some person or philosopher that once said what I'm saying now, and then collectivises me, and then goes against that collective, find some argument to go against that collective, therefore discrediting me as an individual. He was doing that all the time with Kant, Nietzsche, some other tossbags some centuries ago, and immediately that discredits what I'm saying, and immediately my point has no validity. And I would say, Bob, if you're going to do this, try and talk and direct your attention to the individual rather than the person, the group that you arbitrarily assign me to. And if you do that, more people will get on board, and you might even convince me of a few things. So you don't have to use it, but I just felt good.
That's fine. I've got a live stream again. I lost the live stream. The thing crashed because it's so damn hot yesterday.
Yeah, melting.
It's a shame, guys, because it's only after 5 hours and I didn't mention it at the very beginning. I'd like to have that discussion because there is a much more nuanced issue. Yeah, it'll be on my own.
You're still recording?
It's so much well.
Did that record?
Yeah, there's like a, if you're interested, read the book Moral Aspects. Developing the conscious creatures is your standard wider well-being, because when you talk about conscious creatures, it belongs to totality, and then a range of types of reality in a certain way that affect that we can then use science. I'm not any of you guys for some moral underpinning of what it is to be moral. I'm not saying one or the other gentlemen. So what is it that allows you to choose to feel something is moral? Is it just something internal inside you, or is there something greater? And that's the question.
Why don't the mum? I said, why don't the mum kill the young? Why do they nurture? Why is there that bond?
They do. So if you think of lions, they do. So the male lions, the come into a flock, they kill the
no, not their own though, not their own. So there is an intrinsic or innate bond between the mum and the young, right? And that they didn't learn that until so how is that possible? No, in that one specific example of where the mums will always look after the young, you see that across the animal kingdom. Why do they have that strong bond? What is it? What is
so that's an evolution, but he can always come back and say, hey, no,
why is it
to take care of the young to survive? Otherwise, if you don't take care of the young, you won't have species.
Okay, so you call that evolution, but then the problem with that is if you say the word evolution to Bob, he'll consign that to a social construct, and therefore he can discredit. No, I would argue that is an innate biological. That's nature, and nature does not need to explain it.
You see what you guys need to do, and you didn't get to is get to the point where you say, give us an example. So you would say, when you work on your arm,
actually, I wouldn't. I used it. No, but I used it. Yeah, I know you did.
Is there a way to is there some way we can ascertain that my argument is that if you have a good science of neurology, biology, etc., you could say, hey, this is the detriment that it causes wearing this thing 24 hours a day when you're out X, Y, and Z, no matter what the people say. So I feel there is. That's why I say
if he believes in the idea that you have a soul, a soul is a totally individual, and it's so devoid of an explanation. The soul is a soul, right? So I would say that my moral comes from myself. How would he explain that?
Respond to something else who kills people and they say,
that's two separate things. You're talking about a moral understanding of policy, and the second thing is the ability to carry out an act. Right?
So I'm talking specifically about the foundation. So he says, my foundation is I was encouraged my soul system. It's okay to I didn't make an argument for my soul. Otherwise, he just my soul
it doesn't mean the rest of I can't. I'm asking he's asking me.
I can. You know what? Then I can
yeah, right, exactly, yeah. What I'm saying is that there's a moral truth, it's also free will, right? I can't make you do something,
That's not the argument. The argument is having you found it. How can you tell somebody else what they should do?
No, I can't. That's the thing. I can't do that. Right, you can try, but you can't. That's the thing. Because they're always going to use their own free choice, free will. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think, you've got to we'll have another conversation about what I think
But
it's
you
not
get
about
that,
what's happening in practice, it's what's happening in
I can't make this guy do anything. I can try. I can get free will. I can't.
I speak to you. They're not going to come out as Muslims. They're not going to come out as sheikhs or whatever. That's not the idea. It's just that the idea is that as opposed to read that and then come back. If you read that, there's a bit of clarity and he'll make a distinction for you between practice and principle. It's more than the practice thing.
Yeah, I know.
Cool, man. Let's do English flags that bit.
South Africa.
Are you following me? Yeah.
All right, take care, man.
Say something about the...
So you could argue that they were deluded, but
He was not lying.
Yeah.
He believed what he was doing.
So when he was resurrected,
I don't
can't be
know.
a lie.
Obviously, I don't believe that.
That was the point why they would die martyrs, death for those apostles. And even eyewitnesses around. And even so why would they lie? Well, they wouldn't lie and let themselves die if they never actually saw that happen.
They're not. They in themselves are not
Eyewitnesses
lying
around.
about their belief. I'm saying that.
No, but what about that point, about the resurrection? Because that's the
What
point where
point
they
are you
were
trying
dying
to make?
martyrs.
What point are you making?
Well, they saw that he died on the cross.
Well, they said they saw it.
Well, the thing they saw him. Those eyewitnesses
No, that's
around.
what you believe. That's not what I said.
At the time, they didn't believe it
It's
themselves.
not compelling
did they?
evidence.
No, some of them
Well,
doubted.
look at the rabbinic writings. The rabbinic
Doesn't
writings
matter.
say that he was
It's
on
not
the
compelling
cross
evidence for
and
me.
he died.
I guess he could argue that
What
it was a
evidence?
hallucination.
It's easier to say. What evidence would you have made you convict you?
Reproducible. Now.
So that's then you can't
Empirical.
you can't accept anything in the past.
No,
you can't accept anything
That's
in the
correct.
past.
History,
so you can't.
full skepticism on
Sorry,
history.
what were you saying would be the right answer? If Jesus arrived now?
Well, not Jesus. I need reproducible evidence. Even if Jesus came and gave the same message and died again, and even if he was resurrected, that does not mean that what he says is true. It means he's been resurrected. That's a supernatural
So it's
activity.
impossible to-
It's impossible, yeah. I know. We're
Possible
stuck.
for-
Yeah.
I think the closest thing I've seen to reproducible evidence is the changed lives of people that come to Christ.
Yeah, and look, I'm with you.
You know,
Not necessarily though, because that could just be a psychological thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, but what?
say
No, but
Muslims
no,
have
no,
changed
I'm not going to deny the changed life.
got Muslims that
Oh, hi,
change,
Rob.
Buddhists change.
I'm not going to
Fulfill
deny the
prophecy.
changed life. So if
Fulfill
that gentleman there, Dave, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah,
If
David.
he brings me a person in and they are happy being Christian, then I'm happy for them. I do not have any intention to change that person. There's no need. However, if their religion is a problem for secular society, then maybe I've got an issue. Then we've got concerns. And I think Islam
Not necessarily with the religion, could be with secular society is the problem.
It is. My biggest problem is with secular society, not with religion.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to me about what my real problem is, it's capitalism. It's not religion at all. This is small
Well, then what's
potatoes.
wrong with capitalism? I mean,
That's a big topic. It's a big topic.
Yeah, maybe we should stick to
Yeah,
objective
yeah.
moral
Super,
values.
super big topic. And, and
that's
we-
another issue.
Yeah, it's a big issue. And I think, to be honest with you, I'd be shocked if you didn't agree that there are massive problems in capitalism.
Well, that's
Most
another
people
debate
do
from
not
the beginning.
benefit in many, many ways, and we rape the environment and all the rest of it. Anyway, so
It's a
big
complex,
topic.
big, complex issue.
Massive topic, yeah.
So let's stick to Jesus for a minute.
Stick to Jesus. Well, what can I say? Jesus seemed like a really good guy, gave a nice message. People that followed him seemed to be moral. All the Christians that I've ever met in my life, people have knocked on my door, lovely people, seemingly lovely people. Got a nice message.
There are some bad ones. What makes them lovely?
Just the way we judge people, right? They come across as nice. Very respectful, polite.
So you
Well,
don't believe
you
you
yourself
don't
are very
believe
respectful.
I try to be.
you don't believe Nero existed?
I'm sorry, what?
Nero,
The emperor.
the emperor, did he exist?
It's the same with Jesus. I say he's a historical figure. He's likely to have existed because we've got some
But you
facts.
cannot agree with anything in the past what they did.
In terms of the extraordinary, I'm very sceptical, yeah.
Oh, so now we're talking about the miracles Jesus allegedly had done, and his resurrection, all the supernatural. You can't. You'll find difficulty there.
I mean.
So let's put it this way then. So when he was crucified, allegedly, he died on the cross, allegedly.
Well, we'll assume he did. Let's assume he did.
All right, yeah.
I'm okay
So
with
let's have a look at manuscripts of independent people.
Secular historians.
Josephus, historians at the time that were alive at the time. Historians at the time. And the rabbinic writings who were against that. Surely they would have got the body, found the body, marched it in.
It is evidence, but it's not compelling evidence for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Obviously, we're dealing with probabilities here, but it's okay to believe something on the basis of high probability.
But you're not
you need to be
this
absolutely
gentleman's
certain.
not. What's your name, Munch James?
George.
George, hi George. George is saying, I believe, that the probability is 1. So we're not
What
dealing
if
with
it's
probabilities.
90?
No, George is saying 1. The probability of 1.
Now what I'm saying is you've chosen to accept. You've accepted certain things. You've accepted certain things in the past.
With a probability, yeah.
Of what?
That Jesus may have existed. I'm happy to accept.
No, the things.
Number.
Oh, I have no idea. No idea.
So at what point do you decide that something is debatable, and what point do you decide it is certain that there's no need?
Well, with history you
for
don't.
any
With
further
history you
debate?
just have to accept that you don't know. And that's why you guys have faith. But what I'm saying is that if it's not reproducible today, then I cannot accept it.
So surely
it's as fact.
But
as
that does not
fact.
necessarily mean it didn't happen.
Correct.
But surely it's okay to believe certain things that don't have a probability of 1.
What's that, sorry?
So surely it's okay or reasonable to believe certain things that don't have a probability of 1. For example, I
Well,
believe that
my
you exist.
parentage, my parentage.
Right.
My father.
Right.
So he's
probably
80%,
right.
80% likely
Something like
plus
that.
to be my father.
So it's okay that the probability of Jesus.
Do you want to know why that is?
Yeah, go on.
My friend worked in a genetic testing lab attached to Guy's at St Thomas's Hospital, and they were looking for congenital disease connections. And so everybody that said they were the father, only 4 in 5 were actually the genetic father, even though they believed they were the father, and the mother said they were the father.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying 80 plus, because that's the stats I have.
Or alternatively, the test is wrong, and the test is implying doubt.
There is,
where there should be none.
Rob will know this better than I do, but I believe it's about 99% accurate on the DNA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, James, just a very open question. How do you think we got here?
Now we're talking about the origins of the.
Well, the thing is, James was talking about,
You're
demonstrable,
talking about early cosmology.
provable.
Are you talking about early cosmology?
I'm just talking just generally. How do you think we got here?
Early cosmology, we are not sure, but there is some evidence for various theories, hypotheses. Not theories, they are hypotheses. Because if it's a theory, then there's, there's evidence. But we have some evidence of a multiverse. We have some evidence of potentially evidence of it. Jumping Rob, if I'm speaking nonsense. There is some evidence of a universe that continuously collapses and expands. So it's whichever one you want to latch. I'm not a cosmologist. I'm not latching on.
Sorry, probably moving further along in that chain.
So once we've got the dust.
Evolution, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, once we've got the dust, we come from crystals. Ultimately, dust forms crystals. Crystals mutate, and that's the early space.
Where
of
did
life.
dust come from? But
the big expansion.
the thing is, all of the things you're saying you can't observe, and you're just saying you can only believe
No,
in
but
something.
what we do.
There can only have been one Big Bang.
No.
Theories.
No.
Where did those gases come from?
No, because this could have happened multiple times. It could have expanded and shrunk, expanded and shrunk.
Yeah, where did the arguments of where did it actually come from? Where did it start? That Big Bang, who instigated that bang? Where did those gases?
Nobody knows. We don't know.
I think the point.
Really, in this, we don't know everything 100%.
I think the point I was trying to make.
The only truth that is absolute is when we deal with mathematical truth. So we can prove something is true or false.
Not
And even
necessarily.
then it's shaky.
Not necessarily. You believe in the language of mathematics and rationality. There's things which are irrational.
Anyway, that's not.
There's things which are irrational that are also true as well.
So you're happy with the idea of believing in things despite not having a probability of 1. You're okay with it?
No, you see, the problem is we have to start.
You can't just believe in mathematics.
No, but what we do is, I don't like the word belief because I think it's emotive. So I think we're better off using acceptance with regard to the probability. So we have to say we accept with regard to the probability.
Right, so it's okay to accept certain things without having a probability of 1.
Correct.
Okay, well so it's okay that the resurrection of Jesus doesn't have a probability of 1.
I think the point I would make is we'd probably have no problem at all with the probability that somebody made that cup. It didn't just arrive by itself. Somebody had to design that.
But you never know. There's always a small probability that it popped up just by itself.
And there's a probability that maybe you're having a dream, and it's just a dream.
It's here, exactly.
So what I'm saying, and when we look around,
It says 0.9999, something like that. 0.9.
What, that it was made?
That it was
No,
that somebody had to design
say
it.
it was 1. Because it's right there.
Well, we know it's made, but I'm talking about where it came from. It had to be designed.
Once we go down that relative subjective stuff, we're into skepticism. we're lost. We might as well not bother talking. So let's just, because all of science is based on the fact that we assume the universe exists. Right?
That's right.
We assume that we can observe it and we can test it. If we can't do that, then we might as well not have a discussion.
Yeah, I think as long as people label it as the theory of evolution, we can all.
No, evolution is founded on compelling evidence.
So you could say it's a theory, but that's supported by good evidence.
Very strong evidence.
I believe in evolution.
Let's go back to where you were a moment or two ago. It's a theory. Who was there to observe it happen? Who is here now?
We are here.
Who is here now that can vouch that they saw it happening?
Well, we're seeing evolution right now.
Seeing.
Yes, when we put antibiotics into our system, we can actually look at the way in which the bacteria evolves within our own system. That is actually one of the proofs
but what does
of
it turn
evolution.
What does it turn out to be? You've got some bacteria at the beginning, and when it evolves, what have you got after it?
Evolved bacteria, selected
Bacteria. In other words, you haven't got a dog or a cat or a rabbit.
Stronger bacteria.
Exactly. And in Darwin's finches,
But what we
you
do
started
have
with finches and you ended up with finches.
We have a fossil record, and we can carbon date the rocks, so we know when those animals exist.
Well, I think two things there. I think most paleontologists would agree it's a punctuated fossil record. It's got bits missing.
It's in what's known as discrete.
Right, but also, well, I think we'd probably differ on the validity of carbon dating in certain areas.
I'm happy with evolution.
I mean, the Muslims are actually happy.
You can be a Christian and believe in it.
Right, so the Adam and Eve is a metaphor.
I mean, that's what the church fathers believe. Many of them, anyway.
Yeah, but they say some say that. They say
You found one in the park?
in the park. No.
Well, the park isn't a representation of all Christians in the world. Yeah, I know. There are plenty of
But
very.
you are a Christian.
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
You're happy with evolution?
Yes, I'm very happy. I can quote more scholarly sources who also are Christians, deeply so, and yet who have a more allegorical. Actually, Bob himself has an allegorical understanding of Genesis.
I'm a Christian and I believe in God's creation rather than evolution. Part of the basis is what Jesus says. Jesus quoted, went back to Adam and Eve and said, in the beginning it was Adam and Eve. And if Jesus said it, I believe
You're
it.
saying that God created a man?
Yes.
A man didn't evolve.
Exactly.
And the animals were also created.
Exactly.
So what's the issue with the fossil record then? Why are we seeing a fossil record that demonstrates evolution?
Well, we're not. We're seeing a fossil. There is no puncture. There's no, like, to take what might be a silly example, apes with their toes on their big toes on the outside, us with our big toes on the inside. There is no fossil record of a toe moving across. It just doesn't exist.
We separated from common ancestors about 6 million years prior to now.
But where's the
Where'd
proof
you
of
get
that?
those years?
The fossil record. But I'm not going to argue evolution. I can give you some basic facts, but you need a evolutionary theorist if you want to get him drilled right into that.
I think the thing
Otherwise,
is,
I'm going to do it a disservice.
Yeah.
That's Rob wants to.
Well, I think when you talk about facts, I think
Why evolution is true by Jerry Point. Easiest book that anybody
There's a suggestion for you.
I mean, well, the thing is, we can all quote books. There's a lovely new book coming out called, what is the name of it? Oh, he's gone. What's the name of that Darwin book?
Let's talk about something different. Slightly different. Let's talk about science. The difference between science and theology is that science is open to change. That's the key thing about religion versus science. That science is not saying it has all the answers. It's saying this is the best that we have today. This is our observation.
I think you and I can agree about that. But in the heat of battle, scientists get quite dogmatic, don't they? About
scientists opposed Darwin. Scientists opposed Einstein. They were very angry of Einstein.
And by the way, there are still many scientists and many very elite people that believe in biblical creation. You know, the guy that invented the sprockets that won Team GB all the races on the bikes.
There's a lot of quantum mechanics guys that go from QM to religion in a heartbeat without thinking about it.
And that guy totally believes in biblical creation.
Quantum woo-woo, I think Brian Cox.
Can I just take you on your point about science versus theology? Sure. So your point was that science changes all the time, whereas that theology doesn't change. I disagree.
Science doesn't change.
Right, that's it.
Really, it's just that science.
Right, the methodology doesn't change.
No, the methodology doesn't.
change.
Exactly.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
I want to take you up on both of those points because I think on one hand,
I'll try. If not, Rob will jump.
I think theology can change. Theologians will agree on certain basic assumptions, but then they can disagree on the minutiae, on various theological points. And on the other hand, I'll say that scientists, likewise, will stick to a few paradigmatic points. and then they'll argue about the specifics. There's a great book by a philosopher and historian of science called Thomas Kuhn called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, in which he argues that
I can actually give you some scientific bias if you like.
In which he argues that scientists don't always challenge everything. They'll pick a set of beliefs, right, like the paradigm, constant, right? They'll pick a paradigm, and then they'll stick to this paradigm until it's just completely indefensible. But the point is, it's actually not that different to theology. What we Christian theologians or the Christian community does is we pick certain core beliefs, core assumptions, and then we agree. We disagree about the details.
I completely agree that scientists do that. I can give you some great examples of scientists who do that.
For example, scientists don't really. My background is evolutionary biology, and I can tell you that scientists.
No wonder you accept evolution.
Scientists typically don't.
Now the truth comes out.
Scientists typically don't doubt the truth of Darwinian evolution. It's more of an assumption that which is fine, by the way. That's okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's an assumption, a working assumption, and then they elaborate it and disagree on the details.
Scientists are people, and they're trying to cut their teeth and make their mark in the world. They have an idea, or they latch onto an idea, and they go hell for leather to prove their point.
Yeah.
This is true. I know people often say, "Oh, yeah, but the data tells us this," but it's not true. A lot of scientists do have confirmation bias. They can't help themselves, right?
They're human, just
and
like
we
us.
see it. We see it.
Yeah, so I don't think there's such a sharp distinction between theology and science.
I mean, Darwin did all this 150
but
years
in maths
ago.
it's a little different. But
in math it is a bit different.
But we still have confirmation bias even in maths. David Hilbert would be a great example.
In math, we're talking about things that are radically indubitable. It is psychologically impossible to doubt that 2 + 2 = 4.
No, but there are areas of mathematics. I'll give an example.
Of course. Like
there are
more
areas of
advanced
mathematics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where people really wanted something to be true. For example, they wanted to believe that the mathematical system was both consistent and complete.
That's incompleteness theorem.
And they could not. Hilbert could not tolerate the fact that it was not. So it was neither consistent nor was it complete. And that was a real. And he basically gave up talking about it. So he was almost like a theological person.
Right.
Instead of just saying, "I completely embrace the truth of this," he basically went off into the shadows and was quite embarrassed. So we do see this kind of theological approach to science, and it's wrong. But at the end of the day, when science does tell us and compels us, we will shift. Whereas a theologian cannot shift.
I think they can. They can change religion. They can say, look, I don't think this Christian system works anymore. I'm going to move on to another one, which is more satisfying.
Science has had to shift to conform to the Bible. I mean, the Bible's not a scientific book, but where it mentions anything, it's always accurate. People used to think the earth was flat. The Bible says the earth is a sphere. It's in Isaiah. It says the circle of the earth, but if you look in the original...
What about the pillars that are holding up the earth?
I would have to look at that to be sure. But what I was going to say is, this is the book. You just quoted a book that would be a great thing to convince somebody of evolution. The new book's called Replacing Darwin, The New Origin of Species. And what it's saying is, Darwin did all this stuff 150 years ago. If he had all the evidence that we had now, would he come to the same conclusions?
No, we've got one thing wrong, we know for a fact.
Well,
he said there was no acquired characteristics, and there are.
I didn't get the book just yet, so I only just heard about it. I'm quite excited about it, but a lot of it, frankly, is beyond me. You know, I'm not here claiming to understand every jot and tittle of this, but what I am saying is that what people describe as evolution, they're quite dogmatic about, and you yourself have said the fossil record proves it, but the fossil record doesn't prove it.
No, if I said proof of the story, what we mean by proof is compelling evidence.
That's right.
That's what we sort of
probabilistically.
It's not like maths, it's different. It's about saying this is a lot of, for me, it's absolute proof. I look at it and it just makes perfect sense. It's the best explanation for what we have.
Inference to the best explanation.
I mean, I can't go into it because I don't know. But when people terribly cleverer than I speak about these things, one of the things they say is about sedimentary levels, and that if sediments gather at the same pace as they gather today.
Let's do a little test. I am sceptical of everything. Are you?
I am. I would say
so
that I have
sceptical about your Bible.
I have a healthy scepticism, and
so
I
you're
think
sceptical about your Bible.
Yeah, I would say it's very important to know why. Just to complete. Yeah, just to complete the sentence.
No, I'm not trying to debate. I'm just asking you. Because that's a fundamental difference between a lot of religious people here, is they're not sceptical.
Right. No, I'm sceptical. I think it's very important to know why you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
And so I'll talk to other Christians in a friendly way, not in a nasty way, but you know, when people have different beliefs about things. Yes, yeah, we have.
Push him down a route. I wasn't going that way. If he believes it,
This is an intelligent conversation.
Yeah.
This is so rare in Speaker's Corner.
And
intelligence conversation.
Yeah, where I think there's trouble is people claiming things about the theory of evolution and about the fossil record that actually don't stand up. School textbooks from years ago might say they stand up, but school textbooks from years ago show a little picture of a little embryo thing, which was provably made up. I think it was Heinkel or somebody that did that, and so these things kind of seek into the ether, and people absorb them and take them as
It
facts.
sounds as if you and I are not, we're on the same page.
That's just
In
what
other
I was
words,
saying.
when something comes along that demonstrates that what we knew was time is not a constant. It comes along and we just have to change. I wasn't around then, but I would have had to have changed, and you would have had to too because you're a skeptic like me. So I think we're on the same page.
I think we are. However, we're at the same page in many ways. But where I find that we're not on the same page, I wish you.
Is objective morality? Is that what we're...
Yes. Back to where we started.
Well,
right the way back to the beginning.
Objective morality.
Yeah, I guess it's looking at the same evidence and drawing different conclusions is where we are.
See, whereas you would say, well, you might not say this, but some people say, Christian this morning said, I've got God in me. I would say that you have innate objective morality in you. So actually, there's not a lot of difference.
So you have a kind of conscience which intuitively tells
I'm
you
saying
what's right
I
and what's wrong.
evolved to have an objective morality.
Here's the problem, though. Evolution could have given you a moral sense which tells you that infanticide is okay.
Yes, but it
could have done that. It could have done that.
Would we have survived?
Actually,
as
we could have.
social creatures?
We could have. For example,
if we
Indian
killed our
langurs
own
do it,
children-
chimpanzees do, as our closest living relatives, they do that.
The Aborigines, there were Aborigine tribe that ate their babies.
Right.
Right, so they had abortions after they were delivered.
Yeah, and I'm sure they thought it was very intuitive that it's okay to do that.
But
The point is, infanticide can be a reproductive strategy because if you kill the babies of your partner,
you select.
you are
Oh, I see,
exactly
yeah.
you are promoting your own reproductive outcome.
Right.
My question to you
But then
is,
it
how
wouldn't
do
be.
you
But then it
trust-
wouldn't be objective. It
how
would
do
be
you-
subjective.
Right, but how do you trust a process which could have given you, which could easily have given you a moral sense which tells you that it's okay to kill babies?
Let me give you a little example. I hate to come back to it, but we always end up coming back to Hitler. So let me give you a Hitler
I think
example.
that's what is it, the Godwin point?
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
conversation
Always comes back to Hitler. I think Stephen Fry said once it comes back to Hitler,
Always about
the conversation's over. But hopefully this is sensible. The Nazis killed millions of people, and they instigated this process.
Yeah.
And yet, if they were morally on the high ground with this process, why did they hide it from their own people? Why did they cover it up? Why did they have to employ people that they needed to get drunk to do it? Why did Himmler, when he got a splash of blood on his face, feel physically ill? No one could do it, and even after the final solution, once they realised that they'd lost, they destroyed the evidence of what they were doing. What does that tell you about their morality?
They
They
had a
objectively knew that they were doing wrong.
I agree. But my question, though, is how can you trust your inner sense of right and wrong when the process that brought it about, according to you, could easily have brought about a moral compass which tells you it's okay to kill babies?
Because what I said quite clearly is I base it on the objective truth that no human being wishes to be harmed, and if you want to go down the utilitarian route, then they all seek pleasure, and I think that's a moral absolute.
But your belief that it's wrong to cause harm, that's a product of evolution. That same process, which could have given you a belief to the effect that it's okay to kill babies. You see what I mean? You're relying on a set of intuitions given to you by evolution, which according to you
So
is not directed by
I
God.
accept it's not as rigid as a biblical absolute.
The thing is, it's not about, I'm not saying you have to have a Bible to know
And this
what's
is
right
why I
and
couldn't
wrong.
answer
That's
the
not what I'm
I
saying.
couldn't answer the abortion question. I couldn't do it.
What I'm saying is that as a theist, right? I believe in evolution, but as a theist, I think that there's a God behind the evolutionary process. And I have good reason to think that God directed the evolutionary process such as to give us reliable cognitive faculties in the domain of morality. So I can trust my innate sense of right and wrong. My question to you is, how do you trust your innate sense of right and wrong? How do you know that the naturalistic evolutionary process gave you a sense of right and wrong that is reliable? Because it works. What do you mean by it works?
We have social cohesion.
Right, okay.
And
but how
when
do you know
we
that-
break that morality, we break down social cohesion.
How do you know that social cohesion is good?
When Hitler did what he did, sorry
Right.
to come back to him again.
That's okay.
He
Hitler's
caused
a
a
good
massive world war and lots of people died.
Right.
And this country was brought to its knees. I mean, we lost our empire. I mean, that was arguably the end of British Empire at that point.
But I mean, social cohesion can be founded on immoral things too. If you think of the
Well, can you
Aztec
give-
society,
Yeah.
right, their
But did-
entire civilization was based on human sacrifice. If you think of
Was that
the
a religious
Spartan-
position?
Yes. If you
Sounds
think,
like a
okay,
religious
fine,
position.
but if you think of the Spartan society, their entire system was based on slavery and the killing of helots, and they were
That's
like
right,
they were what's it called? You know, they were like slaves.
Yeah, I know.
And the point is, right, just because it leads to social cohesion, that doesn't make it right. See what I'm saying?
Didn't last, though, did it?
Well, I mean, they were one of the most powerful
But did it
cities in
last?
Greece.
Are there Spartans alive today?
No, but they lasted a long time. And they were conquered by the Romans, I believe, who were just as immoral.
Yeah, and they are gone too.
Right, but we're going to be gone too one day. You know, our civilization is going to fall apart one day.
It's failing now.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
according
we
to
can agree
you
on
guys,
that.
we'll be evolved to something else a little bit.
Right. I mean, the thing.
It's a very slow.
I
It's
have
a
a
very
question,
slow,
listen.
very slow process.
Yeah, since you both are declared believers in the theory of evolution, I do have one question.
Okay, that's
and the
a good
question is, what is the evolutionary purpose of listening to music and competitive sport?
Okay.
And why?
Not everything has an evolutionary purpose. Some things evolve out of cultural evolution. So biological evolution doesn't control everything. That would be.
Therefore, it leads to competitive sport.
That would be. But music, you know, things like science, music,
When's the
art,
last time you
necessarily
saw
an
any
evolutionary
animals
process.
sat round really enjoying a male voiced choir?
No, that's not true. There are animals that actually create art. There are birds that create art to demonstrate
We don't
to
know if
others.
it's actually
Art is intrinsic.
But the reason they are
as is religion. I have
is
to
because
say.
they are so few, whereas it's something that humans do widely.
This gentleman's.
Okay, guys, let's go and have a look around. We've done enough there for now. Let's go and see what else we can find to talk about. There's Officer Barnes. He's telling them about music. You can't play music here at all. They play the loud instruments or whatever. So he's telling them where they can go, presumably. Otherwise, nobody's going to be able to hear a thing. People come to speak here, and someone's got a big instrument there.
Not letting them sing.
No flex singing. No, not speakers corner. No. So just one.
Sorry, man, chill out. You was right. You bumped. I got you like this.
She's not a man, she's a woman. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
You know what? She's
And that's what happens in crowded spaces.
And what did she say?
I don't know.
What did she say to me? She said
Hey.
Welcome back to the farm.
Yes.
Yes?
What you do way out in singing over that's fine.
It would be defined as another type of offence. It wouldn't be defined as the R word, it would be defined as another type of offence. And I'm not sure whether the punishment for the other type of offence is any less. It's terminology, it's just a word.
Let's go and see what we can find. Apologies for the stream collapsing earlier. It was the app overheated. The phone, it's so hot here. The phone streaming app just shut down. I've never had that happen before. So I think if it gets hot, I'm going to have to make some other plan to see if I see anybody regular. Just wander around, see what we can find. These guys are still at it here again. See if we can find something in the shade. Oh dear, here we got somebody shouting. I don't like the shouters.
Science is a system of inquiry in a systematic way. It doesn't rest only on empirical evidence. You can have mathematical science, can you not? It can be very systematic inquiry.
Ever die. It's always a good idea to relate. There's old racist Omar. There we go, guys. Old boy Omar. Still here at the park. So, we haven't got rid of him yet.
In the Middle East, people die because of your ideology, Islam. They kill you, Allah. They kill you, Allah. Now you're Syria, Yemen, a lot of people have died because of this kind of ideology. You believe the God is 3-1. Since the birth of Islam. God is 3-1. It's the same millions of people. It's the same God. He first came as a tyrant.
Not a fan of shouting matches. There's Hassan. 5 cameras around him, some other dude. Don't recognise him. That's a bit quieter and cooler here. Not as many people here today.
If I'm harming someone, he's enjoying this. It's a PC. I'm not questioning any of you.
Starting to say Muslim, Islam.
I am being honest. If I was born in fucking Africa, I say that. I would watch
There is a law of
When he didn't say, oh, brother, you're going to get us how much it is. Because you're claiming to know it's
That's your argument. I don't agree with you. That would be terrible.
I don't agree.
Let's go home and look it up, these two. Like a brute talent fried brown, and those fall on majesty, we should look upon him. No beauty.
Yeah.
He was destroyed and protected by men.
You take the DC, you take Super.
You need to make a decision now. If you don't
Good seeing you, man. Long time, long time. How's your friend Phil? He's not coming down anytime soon, no? I learned a lot watching the videos. It's very interesting and very
It's actually coming from the background, an intellectual background where he comes from.
Yeah, he's done the study on those research and stuff. I mean, I know a little bit about it. Obviously, follows a lot more in-depth expertise. I'd like to film that for you. Yeah, if we can find it. Take it easy, man. Take care.
They know the line. They know.
Don't disrespect him. Let's go this way because we don't look at
Okay, I must worship you on this. I must worship you.
So, there is no in house debate if woman should circumcise or not. House debate is how much you need to cut of her private part. So, if I am lying, then we have to say Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Dawud, Sharia law. It's all lying. And here's the bottom line.
Here are speechless as usual. Okay. Are you claiming that FGM is Islam? Is that what you're claiming?
Is it obligatory?
I'm asking a simple question. I'm asking a simple question.
It's not cultural.
This is how we know they're liars.
It's not cultural.
This is how we know they are
It's
liars.
not
They're top
cultural.
of the range liars.
It's Islamic.
Are you claiming female genital mutilation is Islam?
Islamic, yes.
It's part of Islam.
Islam, yes.
Prove it. First of all,
Listen, you asked the question.
First of all, define female genital mutilation and then prove it from Islam. What is FGM? We want to know what is FGM. They're making a claim. Wait. Okay. Prove it.
Why don't
define
you wait
it?
for us?
Okay, define it.
We're going to the biggest
Now they're going to demonstrate how uneducated these people are. Define female genital mutilation. Oh, I'll get it from the net now. You define it.
Let's respond.
Let's respond.
And after that, you are going between the
Define FGM right now. Let's have a discussion.
Are you going to win?
I can't understand you.
Then they walk away.
Can you read it? Can you read it?
No. If you don't understand,
Can you read
walk away.
it? Can you
We're
read
gonna
it?
read it out.
I cannot understand her English.
What part do you understand?
You can't understand
Are you
Okay, read slowly.
I can't understand you English.
If you can't
Are you reading a
understand my
definition?
English,
Okay, can you tell us what you're
please
reading?
go to about 41,
That's not our
52,
definition.
51.
Gonna define
Ladies
it.
and gentlemen, I asked them about apples and they give me carrots. I asked them about apples. I'm asking them to define FGM. They will not do it.
That is better for woman and more desirable for her husband.
Okay, are we going to have a discussion or shall I walk away? I'm only interested. No, but that's not.
Answering your question. Just be patient.
You don't
But that's
listen.
not a
are you?
definition.
You didn't even want to listen.
Hatun,
You're not even trying to
I
listen.
asked for a definition in the English
You're not
language
listening.
of
You're not listening, are
female
you?
genital mutilation. You cannot give me one because you know once you define it, you cannot prove it from Islam.
He doesn't want to listen.
This is
Speak
where
to
you
him.
were lying.
Yeah.
So can you give me a definition? Okay, can you? Are you going to give a definition or walk away? I walk away. I'll walk away. I'm not interested in this discussion.
Listen!
What is it? Sorry?
She's saying it now. See, he's never listening. He's not even listening.
Is it a
You just said
definition?
it
I'll
just now.
get it. I'll get it.
No, no.
I'll get it.
Listen.
I'll get it.
He's
It's
a
funny
heckler.
you.
Heckler, Islamic Dawah Team heckler. He won't listen. He's just here to make noise.
You're not
Read it
giving
one
a
more ti-
definition.
Read it one more time for them.
There's just so much shouting. Just the point is, yeah, just going to change.
The book says we cannot shout on the I cannot shout.
I believe. I am from a country. You got a bit surprised also if you take all the various things of judgment, scared. This is second.
Just following the herd.
And it was about having. I wanted to see what you could do.
Humility is everything. If we are to engage with each other, we need to know how to let go of our own preconceived ideas and let go of the nafs, which means arrogance, ego. Nafs is an incredibly important concept within Sufi Islam. And as a Sufi Islam master, I'm here to talk about the three stages of the nafs. It's a part of the purification of the soul. Tazkiyah, we call it. Is a very significant concept within Sufism. Nafs al-Amara means the lower carnal. Al-Lawama, which means realization of the ego, and finally nafs al-mutamina, which
Alright, so we'll be back a bit later on.
realization of the higher self and
Hot as hell, yes. I'll come back to you.
peaceful